Alright, we're going to get started with the snake feeding. So, we got the camera set up here, but you guys can still hear together up here. Okay, it is 3:30, which means, of course, it is time for one of our 3:30 after school STEM shows. So we have a live audience here. We also have our audience that's watching us online here across Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So for those of you who are in here in person, just a note for you guys that we're also live streaming this, and this will be something that's on our Facebook and stuff. So don't say anything you don't want online forever. And so today what we're going to be doing is our bi-weekly snake feeding. So this happens every other Saturday-ish. Sometimes it's Sunday, sometimes it's Monday. It's been a little bit in flux around COVID. But what we're going to be doing today is offering food to all 5 of our snakes that live here at the Headwaters Science Center. And I say offering food because they don't take it every time. And so even though we only offer them food once every 2 weeks, that's more food than they need to survive, so they don't always take it. Our first one that's going to be up here is going to be Rusty. And Rusty, I don't know if Rusty has ever skipped a meal the entire time I've been here. I tend to start with him because he is in a good position for it, but he also tends to be one who strikes pretty spectacularly. And like I said, he's been here for over a year and a half at this point. I don't think he's ever missed a meal. And so what they are going to be getting fed are mice and rats of varying sizes. So if you're a little squeamish, don't want to see a dead mouse or a dead rat, you've been warned. So that's what's in here. And basically, the bigger the snake, the bigger the rat. And so Rusty is our second biggest snake, so he's going to get our second biggest rat. And one of the things you'll notice is that there's some newspapers down in Rusty's tank here. So we buy these rats frozen, and we thaw them out just in water, and so they come to us kind of wet. And the thing about a wet rat is the bark that you're seeing in the bottom of his tank is going to potentially stick to it. And so we don't want him swallowing a bunch of that bark when he swallows his rat. So we try and have him eat on the newspapers. The newspapers are kind of almost like a placemat for him. He's kind of checking out you guys right now. He's kind of distracted from his rat. So I gotta try and bait him over here. There we go, now he sees it. And so, like I said, we'll try and bring him this way. And he tends to be a pretty eager eater, like I said. So right now I could, if I just tapped him in the face with this, he would definitely hit it. But I want to get him this way a little further so that he'll stay on his placemat even as he continues eating it. Here, guy. And you'll see him grab onto it, and he grabs it head first, and he's starting to wrap his body around it. And so boas are constrictors. And so what that means is when the way they kill their food is they wrap their body around it and basically squeeze it to death. And what you'll see him do is he'll grab it, he'll squeeze it, and he'll sit there and he'll hold it for probably 10-15 minutes here while it kind of cools down to room temperature, because I throw them in the microwave right before I bring them out. And so they're a little warmer than room temperature. And so he's sitting there, he's going to hold it until it gets down to room temperature, and then you'll see him swallowing it whole. Snakes, pretty much as a rule, don't chew their food. Their jaw's not really built for it, so they can really only eat food that they can swallow whole, which is why one of the questions I get a lot from guests, and I've even heard it from a couple of you, is whether any of our snakes would be capable of killing and eating a person here. And no, none of our snakes would be capable of eating any of you, so they're really not dangerous to you in any meaningful way. They have teeth, they can bite, they can draw blood, but as far as doing any actual damage to a person. And so we'll let him hang out with that, and we'll keep moving around to our different snakes here. And you guys are welcome to kind of come in here as well, just be mindful of the cart as it's going around and the cables associated with it. Next up is going to be Jeannie the ball python, who is this one right here. Now, I have to be a little bit careful with these snakes, because they know when there is the snakes know when there's food around, and snakes have notoriously bad vision and notoriously bad hearing. The way that they find their food is mostly by scent and by sort of a heat sensing. And so my smelly rat-covered hand probably doesn't seem very different to Jeannie as a rat would. And so you'll notice that Jeannie is not here on her newspapers. So I'm doing something that's probably not completely advisable here, and I'm going to reach in here and pick up Jeannie and put her onto her newspapers. And I wouldn't do this with all of the snakes. I wouldn't do this with Rusty, because Rusty's, like I said, a pretty eager, pretty aggressive feeder. But Jeannie is very much a chill old lady who oftentimes won't strike even at the real rats. So I'm not nearly as worried about it with her. And so she is our third biggest snake, so she's getting our third biggest rat here. And she's actually skipped her last 2 feedings, which is completely normal for ball pythons. They oftentimes skip feedings. All snakes can go a long time without eating, several months for most species. Ball pythons are exceptional even among snakes, in that they can go like almost 2 years without eating and be completely fine. And so, like I said, we offer once every 2 weeks here, but we expect that, especially Jeannie, is going to skip relatively often. And a lot of times what'll happen with her is she won't strike at it during the day either. She'll strike at it, or she'll come by overnight and eat it, is a lot of times what she'll do. Ball pythons are nocturnal naturally, so they're naturally more active at night. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just leave the rat in there overnight. When we come back the next morning, it's gone. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing here today, but it might be something that's worth checking back on if you're sticking around a little longer to see if she comes back to it. Because a lot of times she'll just come and get it as soon as it gets a little quieter around. She's kind of a shy feeder. And we're going to be going over to Sophie, the corn snake, next. Make sure that we're not running over our cords here. So Sophie's got a pretty big mouse for Sophie today. So she is one who is definitely capable of taking a mouse this big, but hasn't for a while. We actually had her downgraded to a little bit smaller mouse for a while because we know she was putting on some weight when she was getting like the full-size adult mice. And so it looks like she is getting a full-size one today, so it'll be a nice treat for her. And Sophie is a corn snake. Corn snakes are probably the most popular type of pet snake out there. And again, Sophie tends to be a pretty aggressive feeder. A lot of times we'll strike, and then, again, one that does not skip very often. So I expect she'll eat right away here too. Sophie is our youngest snake. We've had her for a little over 2 years, but she is about 4 right now, which is relatively young for a corn snake. They can live to be 20-ish. And so she's an adult. She is a mature adult snake, but she's not completely done growing yet. Snakes never completely stop growing, actually, but she's probably more than anybody else going to get relatively a little bit longer than she is now. You can see she's checking it out, thinking about it, trying to find a good angle on it. And there we go. Yeah, and you'll see they prefer to grab it by the head, and I usually offer it to them head first because that's usually the way they prefer to swallow it. It's just the easiest way for it to go down. Every once in a while you'll see them do back end first, but they really can't do it from the side to start with just because it's too wide for them to get down. So every once in a while you'll see one where it'll get a not the best strike in the world and hit it from the side and have to like spend a while readjusting before it starts swallowing. And next is our smallest snake.